So now, how many people remember that advert? Okay, that's like, I'm a systems engineer by training. I was working at Microsoft for a decade and traveling the world, getting paid really, really well, and was having a great time. But every time I went back to ECAS in Deep Extension, and so my mom actually calls it Deep Expensive, I would always hear the kids going, "Oh, boy, you're such a big, big dreamer." I said, "Who's this Vuyo guy?" Right? And so I Googled to discover there was no Vuyo, totally fictitious character dreamt up by this advertising agency in Cape Town, I think after smoking some green stuff. So I probably trademarked it, quit my day job, and went to the Vuyos farmers market and became Vuyo. I remember telling my mom that I'm leaving my high-paying job to go sell for Robos rolls. She was like, "Oh, you can't age in a pension." It really doesn't sound like that. But what I learned early on is that people don't do epic things because of fear. And often it's not even their own fear, it's other people's fear. In this case, it was my mom's fear. And I don't know about you, I was raised by a single mom, and there's only one rule, hers. That's it, right? And now here I was telling her all the university she's paid for the last so long are now not going to be utilized. I'm going to sell for robots rolls. And to be honest, I think she was more worried about what her neighbors would think. But I didn't give it too much thought. I didn't overthink it because it's very easy not to do epic stuff because of A, fear, B, not knowing what to do. But the biggest silent killer is over analyzing the thing and end up not doing anything about it. So you paralyze yourself from action. So I went to the local for a farmer's market and I rocked up and I bought that grill. I bought it on that day. But it came with legs. It had a stand, right? And let me just make sure I'm keeping track of time. Okay. So it kept on, yes, it came with legs, and I was like, I remember one of my first executive decisions in entrepreneurial. I removed the stand, the legs. And I don't know why that was important to me, but I think it was subliminally. For a long time at Microsoft, we were always trained to have your customer front and center, right? And if I had the grill at the back of the table, that would mean I'd be cooking with my back to my customer. So I wouldn't be seeing my customer, right? And you know, when you have your customers front and center, you can see what they're looking at. You know, you can see, you can chat them, you can talk to them, you can get insights while you're speaking to them. And also, I'm not running an orchestra, so I don't have to be conducting in my back to my feet. It's more like I'm DJing, it's a set. I have to, you know, so interaction is super important. And there's a very important difference between that and, for example, someone who's conducting an orchestra whose internal focuses, whereas someone who's like a DJ who's customer focused. Because you feed on the energy of the customer, right? And I think it's such an interesting thing that no one ever talks about in terms of how we've moved when music was conducted with the guy having their back to the customer. So for me, it was very important. So I removed the legs of the grill. And as I'm about to put the grill on the table, I realized my table is made out of wood. Now, we're cooking with gas here, people. So this is not rocket science. This is not going to work out so well to be cooking with a gas grill and the table is wood. So we found one of those concrete slabs, you know, those smoke, like those paving stone things, and we put it between the grill and the table. We start cooking and we pump. So this is week number 5. Okay, let me try it this way. This is week number 5. The guy, Peter, in the previous picture, turns around to me, he says to me, "Miles, we're on fire." I go, "I know, look at the crowd." He goes, no, we're on fire. It turned out he forgot to put the concrete slab between the grill and the table caught alight, creating this massive flame, which was melting the shade netting above us, which was made out of plastic. So there was this big hole, and the flames were bellowing, creating this massive vortex. And I looked down, I realized the floor is made out of wood chips. It was lit, as the young people would say. And we didn't even have a fire extinguisher. Anyway, but I subsequently studied as a chef, hence the cool chef jacket. And one of the things you learn at culinary school is that things don't always go according to plan, particularly if you work in the kitchen. Because when you cook food for a customer in a restaurant, we're cooking the food for you as and when you come, right? So it's not like we make widgets and we put them in the back waiting. So if I'm making something for you real time all the time, you can only imagine how many points of failures there are in that process, right? So one of the things I got taught was something at culinary school. Keep it moving. If you want to make an omelette, gotta be comfortable cracking some eggs. So don't have fear of failure. Sometimes recipes don't go according to plan. Sometimes days don't go according to plan. So, but just keep it moving, right? So the other thing I'd learned both from culinary school as well as in at Microsoft was release a product even if it's not fully ready. Release it at 75%. Don't wait until it's perfect. They now call it, they've got sexy terms for it now called MVP, minimum viable product. But then it wasn't, we didn't have a name. It was just release. You know, you set a date, whatever you've got on that date, get it out the door. Because if you don't do that, nothing will ever get out of the door. People get in, people, and I've seen this, I do this quite a bit. In fact, I'm currently doing it as we're working on a solution right now. You fall in love with it and you want it to be perfect by the time you launch it. But then that just means it never launches, right? So when we launch the middle Boerewors roll, it looks actually better on the screen. I know it looks dodgy there, but that Boerewors roll in the middle was my mom's secret recipe, chakalaka, right? That thing, I mean, we ran queues just on that product alone. It was amazing. No one ever thought to put chakalaka on a Boerewors roll, and it was amazing. And I'm not just saying so; it really was. But then we added two others because one Boerewors roll doesn't a summer make. So we added two other SKUs, and that allowed us to take the revenue from the top two selling Boerewors rolls from that day and improve the one that sold the least. And because I was also close to the customer, I was getting real-time feedback on what was working. So I'll take that input, take the money from the top two selling ones and improve the least selling one. And over time, the rising tide was lifting all boats. Over time, all products were improving because obviously different weeks, different Boerewors rolls were least selling. And the thing that it taught me about innovation is not an end state. You don't get to innovation and go, today we've innovated. It's something you do continuously, and you can only do true, genuine, good innovation when you're as closest to your customer. One of the things I got frustrated with when I started my own business is, and also when you start working with corporates, is that you quickly realize that corporates or big establishments, they escalate everything. No one wants to make a decision. Everybody's escalating. They're escalating to the boss. Everybody escalates. So the people who are closer to the problem are the ones who are escalating the problem to the person who's the furthest from the problem. So things take 3 times as long, cost 3 times as much, right? And me as the CEO of my organization, all of a sudden, I'm becoming a chief escalation officer, CEO. So I'm only getting the distillation of the problems. I was like, no, I don't want to be dealing with problems. Let the problems be dealt with closest to where the problems are coming from. So that's where the magic happens. That's where the solutions happen. So when we launched this Boerewors roll, this was our version 9. You can tell I'm a recovering tech bro. Everything is still in versions for me. This was version 9. When we're selling this Boerewors, we're selling it at 115 rands with fries. Go figure. I'm a black guy selling 115 rand Boerewors rolls. Like, and it turned out two tricks happened there. The innovation was, we learned that if you cut the Boerewors roll vertically as opposed to horizontally, the base of the roll is stronger because it sits on the pan in the oven. So it's more solid. So when you cut it vertically, you can do more stuffing on the Boerewors roll as opposed to when you cut it horizontally, the sides break. Right? That doesn't seem like massive innovation to you, but to us, that was a game changer. Change our product, right? And then the second one, turned out we just needed to sprinkle some sesame seeds on our Boerewors roll. And then you can charge $115. Go figure. Because all the guys, the hipsters with the shiny beard, they come up to you, they'll be like, yo, dude, is this gluten free? I'm like, yo, dude, at $115, it's whatever you want it to be. Right? And but it pumped. It sold like there was no tomorrow. But also, I could sell it for $115 because we've had, like, by that time, like a year and a half worth of innovation. So we knew what we were doing. And I could look at you in your face and take your money because I was confident that that was a good product. But of course, you don't start at the market to end at the market. We wanted to have a bricks and mortar store, so I can say, look, I made it, So we found a site in Braamfontein. I was convinced we were going to print money. But it turns out Braamfontein is a student town. It's like people are just there during university, around the time the university is open, right? So 2 things I did wrong there. Firstly, I priced my product for students. Turns out students students drink their money, they don't eat it. So I should have known because I went to the varsity. Maybe I shouldn't say that University of Pretoria. But yeah, so and then
the professors were actually my core client base. So they were getting my product for cheap. They couldn't believe it, you know. So I learned the hard way that you have to price the product right. Anyway, when I found the site, it was on the 12th of the 12th of the 12th. So 121212. I thought that's a great binary omen because again, I'm a systems geek. I thought, you know, we're going to print money here. In fact, when I saw the store, I literally heard the angels, you know, I was like, okay, this is it. And then we opened the store on the 26th of December, Boxing Day. That's day after Christmas. And I got 4 snow machines because as a geek, when you write your first line of code, it must say hello world, right? So I wanted a hello world moment. So I got 4 snow machines and we made it snow. It's day after Christmas and it's overcast. People are eating poikis, it's packed. It was amazing. The power kept tripping, but I didn't care, you know, because it was 3-phase power and no, it was a single phase and my snow machines were sucking up the power and I didn't care. It was super cool. People were happy and then on the 27th of December, not a single customer. It's Braamfontein. It's a student town. All the Zulus are back in KZN, the Xhosas are in the Eastern Cape. There's no one there. So I'm sitting there, my tables are lily white like corporate South Africa, and I'm thinking to myself, oi, how did I get here? And it turns out leadership, and I discovered that once you become a parent, you realize that, you know, leadership is figuring things out. It's like your mother or your parents didn't know what they were doing. They were just figuring it out every day. And that's what leadership is, you know. So I needed to figure something out because my staff is sitting there looking like you, looking at me. I'm thinking, how did I get here? It's like, so I decided to pick up the phone. I called the Sunday Times and I say, excuse me, would you be interested in hearing about how we made it snow in the middle of an African summer? And the journalist went, meh, and he hung up. So I have nothing to do and my staff is looking at me. So I decided to write the article about how we made it snow and we had all this amazing South African cuisine. I used these big words, I embellished, I used this byline, PDF, attached a picture, emailed it to him. He called me about 20 minutes later with a bit of a smirk in his voice and he asked me 1 or 2 questions. At this point, I think maybe we'll make it to page 189 on the Sunday Times, and it's a very thin one in December, right? Guess what? I get woken up by Robbie Brosen, the founder of Nando's. He sends me a WhatsApp saying, hey, dude, you're on the front page of the Sunday Times. I rushed out to go to the Bio Sunday Times, and there we were. I'm not sure if you can see that bullet point over there. That's the only thing the journalist wrote. I wrote that, and the only thing the journalist wrote was that bullet point, right? And it turns out that was the best investigative journalism he could have done because he went to SAB and he said, hey, there's this guy called Miles that's taking your brand, he's opening restaurants. What do you guys think? And SAB said, well, if he's got the kahunas to do it, good luck to him. I'm paraphrasing. But an important lesson I learned there is that in life, it is often better to ask for forgiveness than it is to ask for permission. Because had I asked for permission, what do you think they would have said? No, right? Probably. But now that I've done it, it was water under the bridge and, you know, they wished me good luck and so I went. And before I knew it, my story got picked up by other newspaper and other media. It turns out journalists are quite lazy. You know, bad news stories you don't have to look for. Inkandla lands on your lap. But the good stories are harder to find. Your stories are harder to find. So by me writing the story and giving it to them just made their lives better. And also they have to balance the newspaper. It can't all be negative stuff. So before you know it, other journalists, because they're all looking for some good news to balance all the bad news, they pick up my story and they circulate it everywhere. And when I appropriated the SAB brand without compensation, they'd spent 40 million rands on the brand. By the time I'd finished with it, I'd increased the brand equity to 100 million rands and I hadn't spent a single cent on advertising. And like I said, you know what's the scariest thing when the journalists call you to the TV or radio station and they say, let's open the lines for some callers. Callers, call in. I did tell you food we make every single time for every customer, right? Points of failure, many, lots of things. Customers could have had a better experience. And so this caller calls in and says, hey, yeah, man, I was there by your food truck. I couldn't decide what I wanted. All your burobos rolls look good. I wanted this one, but I wanted this one, but then the other one looked even better. And I just want all of them. So your guy cut them into thirds and made me once. I've never taught any of my team leads to do that, but they felt so empowered because of my ethos of rather ask for forgiveness than permission. And here I was on national radio looking like a rock star. And I had nothing to do with it. The guy just felt empowered to make the decision because he was closest to the problem and he knew and he came up with the solution. And my philosophy is You will never get fired in my organization for coming up with a solution, even if it doesn't work, because we can track and trace if the idea or your solution the intent was good, even though the outcome was bad. If the outcome was bad, we call all our failures R&D. So we have an R&D box. We can throw it into R&D. Just don't repeat the same mistakes. But the point is, people need to feel empowered to make decisions the closest they are to the problem. Like I said, before I knew it, I was everywhere. I was starting to meet some interesting people. Let's say Richard Branson to you, Rich to me, because that's how I roll. And then started meeting others, who wanted to take selfies with me every time. I'm like, dude, like really. In fact, when I met the president this particular time, it was after the money in the sofa thing. So I asked him, I was like, how's things going? I didn't know what to say. It's like, so how's it going? He says, no, so far, so good. Funny guy, that. And then turns out, like I said, Braamfontein is a very tough place. I'm noticing, is it flickering, right? Are you okay though? We can soldier on. So it was around 2013. It was a tough time. The business wasn't doing well. And no one tells you this, that failure is actually viscerally painful. Failure feels like either someone punched you in the gut or in the face, but it feels like a punch. It's super painful. And I wasn't prepared for this. I mean, I thought we were going to print money at a great brand, but Braamfontein closes for 4 months of the year. So, you can't run a business always being behind the 8 ball when there's no customer. So we decided to have a straight session with my team. All 9 of us would gather around my laptop and would go on YouTube and watch Vuyos videos. And we realized Vuyos started with the hot dog cart like this. And we had skipped that stage. We went from market to bricks and mortar. So we started figuring out how much it would cost to build a cart, 25K, a restaurant, 3.5 million. We weren't going to be building any more restaurant at that period. It was like, and besides, I thought we were going to make money in the current restaurant. So I'm now even having imposter syndrome of my ability to judge sites, right? So 25K in comparison to 3.5, we thought, let's do that. And plus, we already have a restaurant that we can essentially make into a central kitchen. And it turns out South Africa has got an amazing natural resource of young unemployed youths. So we're like, okay, 25K unemployed youths. So we went to find young unemployed people. We gave them these bright red t-shirts, polo t-shirts, proper branded t-shirts. We removed the polo logo and we put Vuyo name. Now, those 2 things turned out to be a stroke of genius, because when we gave these young people these bright, good quality t-shirts, not the Chinese stuff where you end up washing your car with, those t-shirts that end up looking like this, you know what I mean? We gave them like proper stuff. And the trick about that is that it gave the guys dignity. They started standing up straight and tall. And it turns out such a small little thing, because the inference is that if we treat them like that, they must be of value. And I didn't do it intentionally. It was just, I would never give somebody something I wouldn't do, right? And that was my lesson. And so they stood up straight and they became evangelists. And they would tell anybody who would listen that we rock. They became, how Taylor Swift has the Swifties and Beyonce had the hype. In 2012, 2013, we had a tribe. We had evangelists who would go out to a point that even our merch, our caps and stuff, and our hoodies started selling. People wanted to buy our hoodies. We started making more money out of the hoodies and the caps, right? So, and then we went to these big retailers and we said, look, you've got these dodgy guys selling Boerewors rolls outside your shops. How about we put our guys in there? And was super awkward because they inevitably say, well, those dodgy guys are actually our staff members. So, but they saw the light and they agreed to put us out there. And before you know it, we're doing between 50 and 60,000 rands. And these guys are self-employed, so I was paying no salaries. The site belongs to the retailer, so we're paying no rent. And we'd give them our recipe for our rolls and our boerewors, because they have big butcheries and bakeries in big retailers. And they would grill they would make our boerewors and bake our rolls for us. So kept no stock. In 2013, I ran a business asset light. This is pre-Uber. This was the holy grail of business, where you could be making money without your being there. Then the retailers worked out how much we were making. They kicked us out and put back their guys. But Azulu Makaplan, so I co-founded an association of food trucks called the Mother Truckers. And that's it. Okay, 2 people got that. The truck on there, it's R1 million, 600K. Mine is an old VW Combi that costs us 120K. And we use VW Combis because VW stands for Vuyos Vors, obviously. Or Volkswagen, my personal favorite, right? So we cut off the roof on the VW Combi and we'd start selling from there. And the thing is, as you can see, the Vors was strong with us. Look at how long our queues are. We ran queues longer than Capitec at month end. And the reason for that, I think, is because no one goes to an empty anything. Energy begets energy, right? People go to where there's energy. So I worked this out as a systems engineer that people would stand in the queue because they assume that the guy in front of them must know why the guy in front of them is standing there. So essentially, people are sheep. In fact, that's probably why it's called leadership, right? So I would stand here, and if the queue dropped below 1920, I'd whistle to my team lead a different whistle. And if the line was below 90, I'd whistle, and then he would start drilling slower so that the queue goes back to 1920. If it was too much above 1920, people will drop off and go to the empty something. So I'd give him a different whistle, and it would blow faster, and the queue would always be around 1920. Our queues were always 1920 deep. Because again, I can't say this enough. ENC squared, energy begets energy. And you must know what I'm talking about. Like, I'm sure wherever you work, there's just people who infuse energy in the room. They just bring in the energy. And then there's those people who just suck up the energy. And if you don't know who the people who suck up the energy are, it's probably you, right? You are not invited in that WhatsApp group. I'm just saying, they're talking about you, right? So, I would have staff members who, like there was this lady in one of my restaurants. I was petrified of her. I would sit in my car and psych myself up before I could go into my own restaurant. You know, there's just those people who lack a time disposition. Trust me, if you can do something good for yourself, just hire for energy. You know, there was this guy who'd always drag his feet in the restaurant. I'm like, dude, you got one job to move your own body, right? So that can't help you if you can't move your own body, right? And again, I can't stress this enough. Energy begets energy. I mean, it is super hard to be energetic and in a room, in an auditorium like this, and people are sitting and, so energy is the most amazing thing, even just for yourself. So when I opened more restaurants, that's exactly what I would do. I would rent a crowd. I'd get my aunts and cousins and everybody, and so they sit down and I'd give them the food, but they can't eat it until the real customers see it. So, I want the real customers to go like, what are they eating? What are they eating? And then I would reheat it. Then only 45 minutes later, there's no free lunch, right? So then in 2019, I sold Vuyos and I semi-retired. Now the issue was like, what do I do now? I thought I was still relatively young, and here I was, sold the business. I'm like, I'll be walking down the street, hey, Vuyo, but hey, I'm not Vuyo anymore. So I was like half pregnant and I didn't know what to do. So I watched a movie called Black Panther. How many of you have seen the movie? Cool. You know why speakers do that? Say how many and they put up their hand. Do you know like why I do that? To make sure everyone is awake. It's the truth. So I watched a movie called Black Panther. And in the movie, there was a city called Wakanda. It was an amazing, technologically advanced city. It was the first time I'd seen Africa portrayed on such a positive light on such a global stage. I was so excited. I was inspired. So I left the movie house and I promptly trademarked the word Wakanda from the movie. Vuyos worked out great, so why not rinse, recycle, repeat, right? It's not rocket science. I did Vuyos at a national level, why not do Wakanda from a global perspective? And that's exactly what I did. So I trademarked the word Wakanda, and then about 18 months later, I get a call from Disney, who owns Marvel Studios. They were working on the post-production of the sequel to Black Panther called Wakanda Forever. It was at this point that they discovered that I now own the word Wakanda. Long story long, backwards and forth with my lawyers, we settled on $3.5 million that they paid me to use the word Wakanda. Oh. Except I'm kidding.
Was I taking?
Oh, am I? It's called NDA. I can't confirm or deny the story, right? So, and this is what we do at Wakanda. It was basically, I built what I wish I had when I started my business. like the support that I wish I had.
They have problems and technology that can potentially solve them. And we want to show you a creative entrepreneur who can bring all of that together. Magic happens.
These entrepreneurs were willing to fail, willing to try over and over again, are for me the greatest hope for solving grand challenges.
Really simply that you got customers from faculty who are organized. So pretty much any kind of stakeholder possibility.
With good entrepreneurs, we're surrounding them with the best possible leaders. Mentors, advisors, corporate partners, funders. We were promised a tailored accelerated program, and that's exactly what we need.
We're trying to evaluate the character, the personality of that entrepreneur founder, because that is going to inform the values and the ultimate success. Business strategy, funding strategy, go to market, you name it, we do it. This has allowed us to take a moonshot idea, identify how to bring it into the market, and then take that and scale it up to a global company. We want them to see themselves as leaders and creators of change. We want them to build companies that actually matter in the world, that make things better for countries, cities.
So what we do at Wakanda, we find food creatives and we help bulletproof them as they start in their food journey. So this is one of our alumni entrepreneurs, Dr. Tracy. She's a medical doctor by training. And in fact, she's one of South Africa's youngest doctors. I'd worked with her for about a year before I discovered this. And I was like, oh, Tracy, that's some interesting insight. Why wouldn't you share it? And she told me something that stuck with me. And she said to me that for her, it's always been about the goal, not the role. So she never defined herself by her profession. She defined herself about her life's mission and purpose, right? And I was like, wow. And that stuck with me. Anyway, so her corporate involved told her that if you ground guava seeds and amarula seeds, it makes this plant alternative to dairy. So she makes these superfood desserts and dairy alternative products. And turns out they've got a weight benefit because a lot of people are lactose intolerant, they don't even know. So this is her and her son, Mali, who the dessert is named after, and this is them seeing it in retail for the first time.
Yeah.
He says, Mommy, it's ours, so we can take it for free, right? So, and we also build this kitchen.
So people who are starting the journey in the food space and essentially help them grow and scale and take. We built these amazing dark kitchens, which is essentially a restaurant without sit down. But what the cool part about it is that once the entrepreneur is bulletproof, with all the important skills, he can just start working and he's got his own business on the get-go.
So, and around the same time, then COVID happened, and the president said we must stay at home. I've never been one to ask for permission. So what we did was we printed those essential services certificates, photoshopped them, and we're like making it rain. We rolled up our sleeves. I mean, we built these beautiful facilities between the kitchen and our accelerator. We were all dressed up and know where to go. So we had the entrepreneurs, we had the skills, we had the chef, and now we're told to sit at home. We're like, nah, not a chance. So we went to the townships, the communities we come from, we realized people were hungry, there was no food. I was like, how's this even possible? You know, South Africa, we're not a food insecure country, but why is it that 19 million South Africans are going to bed every night hungry? Moreover, South Africans, we know how to toy and strike. I mean, if this is a problem, how come I've never seen a strike on food or lack thereof? And it turns out people won't go on strike on food because it's embarrassing. No one wants to admit, right? I was like, no way. So it turns out I lived in a bubble
And my bubble, everything sort of works like in our all relative bubbles. That's the thing about bubbles, they work, right? For the people within that bubble. So COVID literally popped my bubble because I was like, no way, this is happening like on my watch. And so my chefs and entrepreneurs, we rolled up our sleeve and started giving out food. First day was 350 meals, next day 400, whatever. Like it just kept on escalating. There were more and more and more people all the time. And then an organization called the SA Harvest saw what we were doing, and they called me up and said, "Listen, we see you. SA Harvest rescues food from big retailers and farmers. So all the excess food from all those establishments, we pick up with our cold chain trucks and we give it to community-based organizations. So all the mamas that are cooking for kids and stuff in community." And so I've been sitting on that board for the last 5 years. When I started, like I said, we did probably like 5,000 meals. Over the last 5 years, we've just now shy of 115 million meals. I need to update that slide. So then for me, it was the realization that when there's a thing called toxic charity, when you start helping in communities, the first thing you see, people are super appreciative to see you. In fact, if you are seeing a shrink and you're paying 1,500 Rand, take what 1,500, go buy some stuff and go to a community, that will do more for you than it will do for them. It's the most amazing selfish thing with I suppose, altruistic outcome. But the appreciation, not even your family gives you that smile. The anticipation, so we're going to see you, we're not seeing you again. And then if you don't come, it's like, where were you yesterday? There's all of a sudden an entitlement, right? And before you know it, you've created a dependency. People now stop coming up with solutions for themselves. They wait for you. And can you blame them? You've taught them that you are reliable, you're solving their problem, and you're consistent. Of course, it's natural that people are going to just now wait for you to come, essentially feed them. So I was fed up about that. And I thought, no, this is not sustainable. There must be something that can be done on a systemic level. So my team and I sat down and we realized that, and this applies to everything. Poor people are not poor just because they are poor by design. It's a system failure. In fact, it's not even a system, it's an unintended system failure. So because the system works if you're middle income and above, because there's a few of you, but the base of the pyramid holds up everybody else. So that means a 20 kilogram bag of maize meal works out at 7.50 Rand a kilogram. Everybody gets that. That's called economies of scale. So you buy things at 12.5 kilograms of flour, you put it in your pantry until it has weevils. And you would have probably bought like a 2.5 kilogram one, but you know, it was immaterial for you to buy 12.5. It's a little bit cheaper and you've got space to store it. So it's like, it's not even a decision matrix for you. It's just, I'm just going to take that. And often that just ends up getting weevils and you throwing it out. But if you're poor, you're on the other side of the spectrum. It means a half a kilogram of maize meal works out to be 13 bucks. So it's almost double. It's called poverty tax. So poor people or the base of the pyramid subsidizes everybody else. And again, it applies to transport, electricity, it applies to everything. That's why it's almost always impossible. In fact, the study says it takes about 4 generations for someone to spin themselves out of poverty. Because even if you tried, it's just everything is working against you. Knowing the problem and coming up with the solutions are two different things. So now that we knew the problem at system level, at first principles level, the question was, so what is the solution? And this is what we came up with.
Vanita, food centers that allow customers to buy the amount of everyday products they can afford with the money they have available.
I think the bullet said on like sometimes people can afford the pets, but at least not there's even everything is there. From one level on one, one can afford.
Because like if you get your return that is about the budget. If you get enough money, to buy it more, to run to Shiba.
Somebody's driving around in Alexandria in Johannesburg, and I find this really good shop on the side of the road. And it's to check how they operate. I think this is pretty cool, right? Consumer buying this little glass jar from us. They refill your container with your selected products, and then you pay on your weight. So for people that can't afford to buy certain grocery products, from all these really good products that we use on a daily basis, and other products as well. And then here is what's prepared for us. Everything. Coming up to container, the digital container, weight, what's the eat, what's the child, weight, just for that.
So we sell everything at unit item. The tea bag, 50 cents, eggs used to be $2, now $3. That's a big. Yeah. So if you want flour for 186 cents, we'll sell your flour for 100 cents. Sell everything based on the amount of okay, as opposed to pack size. And around the same time, we had load shedding. Around the same time, we had load shedding, and this is how dark it is in Alexandra Township during load shedding. And we were running solar, and we'd be the only ones lit. And you never want to be in a township and be the only one lit, because it's like you're saying khali khali, like look at me, and everybody else is having a tough time of it. So, and it turns out like light is not about seeing, it's about security. And it changes people's trade patterns. Like I remember the one mama was standing in front of the Gcwalisa, so I thought maybe she didn't have money, because Gcwalisa means fill up or top me up. So I thought maybe she wants me to top her up, so I'll go on the outside to where she's standing. So I asked her like, how can I help, ma? And she says, no, I'm fine. It's just that we've had load shedding 4 days in a row, and I come home from work at 5:30, and it's load shedding starts at 6 p.m. So for the last 4 days, I've been feeding my family pap and eggs, because the eggs are the protein, and then of course the starch, and she knows that that's not healthy, and besides, no one wants to eat it anymore. So she's trying to figure out what to cook. Now, there was no world of me or a version of me or any me in any universe that would have worked out that people's nutritional intake or food intake was based on load shedding schedules. That hit me like a ton of bricks, because that would have never been my lived experience. There's like no version of me that would have found this out unless I wasn't speaking to that mom. And so what we then did was on our next versions of Gcwalisa, we started increasing the amount of solar panels that we put on the Gcwalisa. So this is version, I think this was version 3 of Gcwalisa, where we increased the amount of solar panels on the Gcwalisa so that we can reticulate electricity to the houses around us. So now we've become a microgrid as well. So people pay 5 rands per load shedding hour. Or in fact, it's now load reduction, because like I said, poor people subsidize everybody. So the reason why the rest of the country, or majority of the country, actually technically a minority of the country, has uninterrupted energy, or the so-called load shedding has been gone, is because the majority, the base of the pyramid, are subsidizing you. So in townships, people have load reduction when there's massive loads, so that in the northern suburbs, you don't get impacted. So now with our load reduction hour, people pay 5 rands per load reduction hour for the electricity when they don't have it. And Gcwalisa works so well now that, you know, people pay for everything based on the amount of money they have, which makes us weigh everything. So we weigh even when they pay us, you know, because they pay us in coins. So at the end of the day, it's just faster to weigh the money. So, and clearly it's a very scalable business. Oh, you're killing me, guys. I mean, I'm throwing these puns in there. It's a tough crowd. Okay, cool. This is what Gcwalisa looks like now. This is our version 7. So we do food, energy, water, and health. Health is the one I'm super excited about. We launching and executing that. We would have launched beginning of the year with it, but a certain president in a certain country killed an agency that was going to pay for the, yeah, I move on. And the idea behind that is that there's a lot of people on chronic medications like ARVs and diabetes medicine. It is too far for them to go to the clinic to pick up their medicine. There's a transport cost, so they fall off from taking the scripts because it's A, too far. B, also when they start getting better, they stop taking it, and it's compounded by distance. So what we do with Gcwalisa is that you can now come and pick up your chronic script at a Gcwalisa, and we can bundle that with a meal, or so that it's a combo. So you can get your meds, because one of the things we discovered is that a lot of people also don't take their meds, because if you're taking ARVs and you don't have a good diet, it makes you nauseous, depending on the regimen you're on. And also, those regimens also create things called lipodysmorphia. So they move the fat from around your body and they put it around your waist and your hips, which now leads to diabetes. So you're curing somebody from with ARVs from HIV, but you are inadvertently giving them type 2 diabetes, which therefore means it's super important that from a nutritional intake, we make sure that they take the right food. Yeah, so that's what we do with Gcwalisa 7. I'm gonna skip this. So as I conclude, this slide is super important to me because this is what I've learned in my journey. I've learned that in life, you have to have the humility to shut up and listen with your eyes. Because when you listen with your eyes, you'll see that opportunities are plenty and they're all hidden in plain sight. And if you want to fix very big systemic problems or any problem for that matter, you can't fix them within a boardroom and throw them over the fence or throw the solution over the fence and you hope it sticks. If you want to fix big systemic problems, you have to go where the problem is. And like I said, listen with your eyes, because if you don't, this is what happens. This, you can tell, was built by someone in the boardroom who said, let's build a play area for kids. Let's create a slide for kids. I'm sure you can see that all the kids are using everything but the actual slide, because the people who came up with the problem and the people who solved it were miles apart. And with that, I'd like to say thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you. Cool. I think we have some Q&A. Awesome. Please, otherwise it would suck.
Any questions from all? Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Miles.
Thank you.
Any questions?
There's one up there. Yes. Hello. Hello.
Well, thanks so much for the very interesting, very inspiring presentation.
Thank you.
I didn't really catch all your plans, sorry about that. No, my question is, like, what kind of size of a team do you have? Like, what kind of structures and processes to turn all these lessons that you learn back into actionable outcomes or interventions or something? Like, how does that work, that transformation of the learning process of the team, and how do you do it?
Sure. Good question. So a couple of things to that. One was why I come and speak for in an environment like this. It was one of our tenets as an organization is we practice what we preach and we preach what we practice, because it becomes like pointless. We've got all these amazing insights and the things we see. What is the point if it just stays within our team, right? Like if I can share some of the learnings and insights, I'm hoping I pop some people's bubbles and they go too and start and do some of these things, because like the scale, someone says, I sound so positive. Like, do I have bad days where I feel like it's insurmountable? Like every day feels like it's insurmountable. This is how I typically feel by when my battery starts getting finished around 12 midday. It feels like I'm trying to heat up the ocean with a chocolate kettle, because it feels like the problems are so big, and every day I keep showing up with my kettle and like the ocean is not getting any warmer. And yeah, it would be easy to quit, like because every day they're so different. Like yes, 2 days ago I sat with these young kids. They're working on a project we're working on for some spazas, because kids started dying in spazas, as you know. So we've got these young kids. We're working on this cool thing that we're deploying. So we got 5 of them. So this was the feedback session, like after that. So 5 young people from Alex. So 4 pitch. So 1 didn't pitch. The 2 arrived late, and then the other 2 were on time. And 1 is wearing like this beanie that's like, it's just sitting on the tip of the back of his head. I'm like what purpose is that beanie serving? It's like 28 degrees outside. It's not even wet. Like, I'm like, woosa. And I asked them, like, what are you doing? Like, they say, no, we didn't do well in grade 12, so we upgrading our metric. Okay, cool. Have you finished? Yeah, we just finished. We wrote in June. So what was your first results? We got a level 3. I don't know what that means. So what did you get now? A level 4. What does that mean? Well, we moved from 40 to 51. Okay. And then because, like I said, you listen with your eyes and you have to have the humility to shut up, because turns out if you ask people questions, they'll tell you what you think you want to hear. So you end up solving for what I call the say-do gap. You solve for what they say as opposed to what they actually do, which is a terrible waste of resources. So now I just like prod and let them talk without actually asking the question. And one of the things that I then discovered was that they said, you know, like a lot of everybody from government to private sector, everybody spends a lot of money and resources in the top percentile of the kids who are likely to be successful anyway. So the ones who are good at STEM subjects and they were going to go to university. So there's lots of money in bursaries, but there's no money for the rest of us. I'm like, what do you mean? And they say, us. The whole of Alex is us. We are the base. There's more of us who didn't make it to any tertiary, or there's many more of us, basically is what they were saying. And I never thought of it that way. Like that everybody looks at but no one ever, and I've never seen the poverty tax from a human capital point of view. I've always joked about like natural human, what did I say about young people being a natural resource? But clearly we're not developing or beneficiating that natural resource like almost all our other resources anyway. Oh, that was so insightful. Like, could be a research paper. Yeah, so I don't know if I actually answered your question. I went off on a tangent, but I'm hoping contextually cover some of those things. Oh, the team size. There's 16 of us, and most of them are interns. We've become, because we can't afford everybody else, we've become very good at converting interns. We try and find gogos, like my mom who's retired, got lots of insights. So we take interns and we put the retired people, we call them returns. So we put the returns and the interns together. So, and often it's more like the stuff that just bugs me, like, why are you wearing a freaking beanie? Like, it's all those nuances that could impede somebody's life trajectory and they don't even know, right? Like, just show up on time, right? So that's what my mother drills into them with the long, yeah, moving on.
So perhaps just explain what a goal is trying to measure this.
Oh, a gogo is a grandma. And there's a lot of retired people who are still like sharp and could add value, and but they're just sitting in home bored and their brains atrophy because they're doing nothing. Cool.
Any other questions?
There's one up front. Oh, yeah. Maybe you can ask in the meantime. It's gonna take a while.
I have a silly question.
There's none.
So I've read the comments, and Wakanda's been around since like the 1960s.
Yes.
So how are you able to use the name without problems? Because it's not new. Disney didn't make it up. It's been around for like decades. So I was just wondering how that worked out.
I think I explained it very well. I can't say any more than that. Yeah.
Marvel never trademarked it in all those decades.
Like I said.
So,
Yes.
Coming from the resources is a hit software, and you obviously were able to.
Sorry, I can't hear you, ma'am.
Sorry?
Yeah, I can hear you now. Yeah.
We heard your inputs from the business jets conference on your app.
Yes.
And I don't know if that's intellectual property, but I just wanted to know how far the project was. When we're going to see it.
It's live. You can go to www.spazamisa.co.za and test it out. So maybe let me explain what it is. So so just in the last 5 years, the things we've had to contend with. So COVID, hunger, load shedding, load reduction, and then kids started dying in spaza shops. And what we had built for ourselves is a really cool app called Spazamisa. Well, we've rebranded it to Spazamisa, but it was just an internal app. So you take your phone, you walk around our shops, because we decant food, health and safety was always paramount for us, because, you know, and also because we are building a brand, if someone dies in a spaza shop, it's a nondescript spaza shop. No one ever knows, like even if they close it down. But if it's us, we will end up on the front page of something. Someone will take so much glee because that's what people do. They take so much joy in putting you up, but they take even more joy in cutting you below the knees, right? So I'm very, shall I say, paranoid about that. So we built a piece of tech where, especially since we're starting to grow more Gcwalisas, how do I make sure the standards are the same, especially if you're decanting food? So you walk around and it uses computer vision and AI, and it works out based on R638 to make sure that all our health and safety standards from the shop are met. It's super cool. Really, really try it out. Like, I really insist, because I'd love to see you get your feedback. And I can tell if you did try it because we can see the numbers go up or down. So please try it, and we're more keen on the feedback. So whilst we're doing that, like I said, then kids started dying. And we happened to have the UN Development Program, UNDP South Africa, who came to see what we are doing. And I showed them what we're doing with our technology and stuff. They said, well, why don't we open source, as in SAUCE? Why don't we open source this to the spaza shops so that they can utilize the technology to help themselves meet the health and safety standards? And so we're currently working with the UNDP to deploy this into 20,000 spaza shops. And it's a journey. It's interesting. There's so many dynamics we didn't think about that we're coming and coming across. But I can tell you the insights we are garnering from this are just going to be like amazing. Yeah. So it's a work in progress. I can't wait to reduce some of these other slides and start talking about that going forward. But I think it's a little bit early. But yeah, but we're already getting some rich insights.
Any last question? One more.
You get one. Everybody gets one.
Anybody? There we go.
Hello.
The compliment.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you so much for the very interesting presentation. I also like what you're doing with the essay. You know, we've got an issue with comfortability. So if ever, at least you are meeting the people halfway so that they can talk about everything. It's a very huge difference. I also like the food, energy, and how to see the, yeah. I also like that what you mentioned about health, the fact that we touched base on the issue of ARVs, that most of them do not have the transportation money to go and pick up these medications. And we also touched base on the food aspect. You know, having to come from the rural backgrounds, you know, and from the Eastern Cape province. So I always feel like, as you mentioned, we've got unintended systems failures, you know, and as you were talking about this last slides, you know, it's like these were developed or designed by people from different, I don't know, different people. But I feel like in most of the policies that are out there, there are unintended system failures, you know. And whenever I'm going through some papers or I'm researching about something, I always feel like whatever systems are out there, they were not centered around the big generalities or different experiences. So I think that's where most of the answers come from. As you said, it is a matter of transportation, but also it's a matter of food. People are not taking the ARVs because they don't have anything to eat. So why should I take a medication and medicine? And it also goes along with okay time, the clinics are far. So I do not have the transportation. So I think the initiatives that we are doing keep up the good work. We need more people like you. So that is all. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. Yeah.
Maybe last question. Yes.
Thanks, man.
This one last question. Before I get to go to tea. Oh, hi everyone. Thank you so much, Mr. Marks, for the wonderful presentation. I had one question about the food that you had at Gcwalisa. So I just want to know how do you decide what kind of what items to sell in your stores? I just want to understand the process behind it because my supervisor was saying also that most people eat for survival. So what is the process behind it?
It's a really good question. Never been asked that. And it's something that's super important to us. And the short answer, in a township, there's nothing healthy. Everything is either fried or highly processed. It's just like nothing healthy. Like, oh, I lie. I mean, there's gokos who sell fresh veggies, and that's been a massive saving grace, by the way, right? But for the most part, or let's put it this way, convenience food, readily available, there's pretty much none. So in Gcwalisa, we don't sell carbonated sugary drinks. We don't sell potato crisps or any of those dodgy plastic thingies. You know what I'm talking about. Amarasta and all these things, right? We don't sell any of that. We don't sell cigarettes. And that's a conscious decision, which turns out to be a very expensive moral high ground, because we could do 3 times our turnover if we sold that. Because someone who buys cigarettes invariably will buy chippies and will buy all these other things. So we lose a lot of money just because we don't do the other things. And you know, I've got a board, so the questions get asked, like, and these are tough questions to say, like, to what end? We can't be marginal, like, then it's not sustainable. So you're trying to do good, but if you don't survive, then what was the point, right? So, I mean, there's ones that we have to probably reconsider, like carbonated sugary drinks, because they generate a lot of income and they bring in a lot of feed. I don't have the right answer yet. We're learning. But also our other products, like now we have home care stuff, because people can just decant the soaps or whatever. And things like this is so a lot of feedback comes from our customers. And a classic one example is this mama comes up to us and says, why don't you sell baby diapers? We're like, ma, we sell what goes in, not what comes out. And she goes, what goes in must come out. I'm like, okay, that's logical. That makes sense. But I'm like, I don't know much about kids, but I do know that selling you one diaper at a time is going to seem futile because they go through a lot of those. And then she says to me, no, what they do is if a baby does the number 1, they put the diaper in the sun and it dries, the gel dries up, and then they put it back on the kid. If the kid does a number 2, you repeat step 1, dust off, and put it back. So people are using disposable diapers multiple times. Now, if I was a Kimberly-Clark or a company that makes diapers, I would be making diapers with inserts, for example. Because my first question is, why don't you just use those old terry cloth diapers? Turns out those diapers are like 500 by 500. 3 things, because they're so big, the new clothes are designed for disposable diapers, so they don't work with new clothes anymore. Terry cloth uses water. That's not guaranteed. And you are probably a woman who's working for somebody else in the northern suburbs. So when are you going to have time to come and wash those diapers? And ironically, the people who use the terry cloth diapers are the ones in the northern suburbs because of it's green and it's environmentally healthy. But she'd still be the one who's washing those diapers. You know what I mean? So, so those insights, like there's hundreds. We got so many of these insights from our customers that, like, if we had the capital resources, like, we would be driving that impact that you were talking about at scale, because your customers know what their problems are. So what we try and do is we just try and give them equity into the solutions of their own problems. We call it charity as opposed to charity. You must have share in your own solution. So with that, I'd like to say thank you very much, everybody.